reaction, Fox News contributors Paul Morrow and Nicole Parker. Paul, it just seems like common sense. I see a police officer walking down the street, I feel safer. And maybe not everybody feels that way, but statistically, the cities are safer when this does happen.
Of course. And, you know, nobody is arguing that the National Guard should be out there building cases and making arrests. They're not doing that in D.C. You'd have to marshalize them for that. They'd have to be trained. It's a whole rigmarole, and it's only going to happen in the direst of circumstances. It's not what's being proposed here. What it does do is it creates what's called omnipresence. When people see uniformed officers of any agency, they behave, and they're going to go elsewhere. It's prophylactic, and the best crime is the crime that doesn't happen. And a tell here, I think, Congressman, is the fact that if you walk around in New York City, you will encounter uniformed soldiers in various hotspots in transportation hubs who are positioned there under prior programs relative to counterterrorism. And you'll also, if you reach back a year or two, you would have seen soldiers, the National Guard, in New York's subways as activated by Kathy Hochul, our governor. Nobody said boo. Why? Because it did not have the patina of Donald Trump, and it wasn't being done to people who had presidential aspirations, as does a guy like Governor Pritzker.
And Nicole, look, you got FBI experience. You've been around the block. You understand this and how the public reacts and when there's crime. How do you fight it? It just seems like basic common sense that if you want to reduce the rate of crime, that you're going to need a police presence there. And how these other cities and states, I don't understand sanctuary cities, and I don't understand why they would resist the idea that there would be federal resources to help them, because if they think that the status quo is acceptable, it isn't. People should not be having to live in fear.
You're exactly right, Jason. And it boggles my mind. Since when is safety and security in your community? Why is that a political issue? I mean, what does our country come to? But I really think what it is that a lot of these elected Democratic officials across these, blue cities, sanctuary cities, they're extremely defensive. And I think some of them are even desensitized to the crime that they have in their own cities. They, like Pritzker, saying, oh, we don't need you here. We've got things under control. You've got a major problem in Chicago. You talk to Gianno Caldwell, who's a Fox News contributor, and you tell me if you think that Chicago's crime problem is under control. His brother Christian was murdered there, and that case still is not solved. And so I think what it is that they're extremely defensive. They can't admit that they're wrong. And look at what President Trump is doing. He goes into D.C., and within 3 weeks, I'll tell you, I love checking Attorney General Pam Bondi's feeds every day with the number of arrests. I think today we're up to almost 1,300 arrests, over 135 illegal firearms taken off the street. And I give it to the mayor there, Mayor Bowser. It takes a lot of humility to admit, you know what, President Trump, you were right. And I think it really is a lot of people's egos. They cannot admit that they are wrong and that President Trump can come in and fix a problem that they've had in these cities for years that they have not managed to get under control. President Trump walks in within 3 weeks. Carjackings are down by 87%. Violent crime down, 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 down. President Trump, once again, is right, and they cannot admit it.
Yeah, Paul, I do give credit to the D.C. mayor who was supportive, then she wasn't supportive, now she's supportive again. I think what's happening is she's actually talking to constituents who are saying, you know what, it's a lot better now that all these men and women are walking around and law enforcement, because I can go walk my dog at 8 o'clock at night in D.C. I didn't used to be able to do that. But how? I just don't fundamentally understand the argument against it.
Well, Bowser, I would argue, is actually cut from better stuff than some of the opponents that Donald Trump is facing here relative to the cities. Now, let's recognize that she is in a city that's federalized, and Donald Trump has more options relative to D.C. than he would have with some of these other cities that are not under federal control. But that said, Bowser has taken some steps before all of this. She declared an emergency at one point relative to youth crime. She pushed through a crime bill. She's aware of the fact that her constituents want to be safe. But I think Trump put it right when he said, look, she's a nice person. He likes her. He likes to work with her, but he felt like she wasn't getting it done. You know, that's one thing about Donald Trump is he's going to put his finger on it, and he's not going to play word games. And at the end of the day, you needed more bodies. Let's remember, they created these conditions by demoralizing police departments, and they're down thousands of officers, and that's why you're getting these conditions.
Yeah, I think the police, the men and women in law enforcement, they knew that their political leaders didn't have their back. And then Donald Trump comes along, the president of the United States, and he does have their back. Recruitment's up, people want to serve, and they want to be part of the solution. They love the flag and they love America. Paul Amaro, Nicole Parker, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Hannity.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.